Hi, and welcome to another episode of Walleye Chronicles. This week we have Mr. Brad Hawthorne of Hawthornes Guide Service in Mille Lacs Lake. Video's not great, but audio's great. Listen up, this is a great one. Brad Hawthorne, everybody. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Walleye Chronicles, where I get you off the boat, off the water, off the shoreline, and in the studio, and we talk some fishing. This week, this episode, I have Brad Hawthorne. He is a guide for over 20 years on Mille Lacs Lake in Minnesota. How you doing today, Brad?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. So you, are you a Minnesota boy from scratch? Did you grow up in Minnesota? Where'd you grow up? How'd you get started in fishing?
All right. So the quick and dirty on me becoming a guide was I always wanted to be a guide. Like I always knew that was what I was going to do. So I grew up in Chisago, bought a bait shop when I was 18 that was a horrible mistake, like the worst financial mistake of my life. I learned a lot in business, trial by fire. But during that, so when I bought that bait shop, I had people coming in that were like, hey, Green Lake, Chisago Lake? I was like, yeah, man. And there was a Silverado bass tournament going on. And that was kind of like precursor to all the big tournaments. And a lot of those guys would hire me out to go figure out how to fish the slop. Because what had happened in Chisago at the time was Eurasian milfoil moved in. And I grew up on the lake and learning how to fish it, not knowing that those skills were going to come into play when I got that shop. And they're like, hey, I'll pay you $50 and you come out here and show me how you fish in that stuff. And that's kind of how it started. So bought the bait shop in Chisago, horrible mistake, went out of business, whatever. And then I had all these clients still. And I always wanted to move to Mille Lacs. That's where my family's from. Great Grandma Lucy was up here. My grandparents had a place up here. My great Grandma Lucy, she got off the boat, her and Charles, and they kind of settled up here off the lake about a mile. And they lived up here for 85 years. So my family's always been here. So I moved up here in 2003 or 2004 and worked at Reed's part-time and guided full-time. And then once I got enough clients about, I'd say 21 years ago, I just went full-time. That's kind of me in a nutshell, really.
Awesome. A quick question. What was the bait shop called?
It was Hawthorne's Bait and Tackle.
So you say it was you said it was the worst. It said what made it so terrible? Everybody, all of us sitting here listening to this think that it would be awesome to own a bait shop. So what was the downfalls?
Okay, so that's exactly it. That's what everyone thinks is not it. It's not the deal. I'm telling you. So you got, let's say your power goes out. Guess what dies? All of your bait. Seriously. So the week of opening fishing, the power went out probably 8 or 9 times, right? Oh, so I'm ordering $2,000 worth of bait, and the only thing that'll live through a power outage is fatheads. So people are coming in there trying to buy shiners, and I'm like, I ain't got any. The bait guy's like, what are you doing to your bait, dude? And I'm going, I don't know. So it was hard, dude. It was super hard. And then just really drilling down on it. The guy that I bought it from used the inventory as collateral on another loan. So that was a rough one. Yeah, exactly. I didn't know. I thought I bought a bait shop and everything was cool and whatever. And, the bank showed up and was like, hey, this is all ours. And I called the police. I was like, this isn't yours. And they showed me paperwork. They're like, it is. He used it as collateral for a loan. And I locked the door and said, we're going to court with this because I got a contract. You're saying this is mine. Mm-hmm. But it was after the fact. He signed it to them. They had first right. And, he didn't think he was going to go out of business. And it ended up, they took 3/4 of my inventory. And it was a rough go, dude. And I tried to make it go after that. But when they remove your inventory, you have nothing to sell. And when you don't, and you're working off of such a slim margin, you're working off of like 30%, you know? And I at the time, I think I had $100,000 worth of inventory. So you can imagine what the store looked like after that.
Oh my gosh.
But
so
anyway,
you started Dream Job off in the hole.
Yeah, exactly, dude. It was like, so like I'm learning every day. Like, number one, if you buy something from someone, you do a title search on it. Like, hire a lawyer, make sure the bank, there's no liens on anything you buy, man. And that's what I didn't do. And you know, in all fairness, the dude that I bought it from, he didn't plan on defaulting on his loan. You know, he didn't plan on screwing me over, but it just, you know, it kind of happened. He was in a bad financial situation, so it ended up just overflowing to me, which like I didn't think was cool, but whatever. You know what I mean? I'm glad 25 years ago now.
Well, welcome to the adult world. Oh man. That is not where I thought that was going to go. That's a terrible way to start.
No, it was super terrible. So the good part. Go ahead.
I just can't get over. Can't go over you have a dream to do something, and you're a young kid, 18 years old. You're like, I've got the world by the balls. I'm going to put a bait shop. Everything's going great, and all of a sudden, everything just poof, it's over with before it even really gets started for you.
Yeah, it was terrible. But like I said, I learned a lot through that. I learned about business, number one.
Yeah.
The bait shop taught me how to run numbers. The bait shop taught me margin, and the bait taught it. Truthfully, the number one thing that it taught me that nothing else did was cash flow, and it taught me how to run a business the proper way. And what it also did, what I'm thankful for of it, is I had about 100 customers. And some of them are still with me today, guide customers, that they were bass customers down on the Chisago Lakes chain. And now they're my bass customers up here in Mille Lacs. So it was a blessing in disguise. Like, in truth be told, my heart wasn't really in the bait shop. My heart was in being a guide. So, you know, whatever.
So when you were doing the bait shop, were you even before you kind of decided it was over? Have you already kind of decided that, hey, I need to find a way to get to do more guiding? Was kind of like, once you're in the bait store, you knew that wasn't going to work for you? Was the guiding was the next kind of world for you, and you're just kind of trying to find a way to pivot into there?
Yeah, so my trips, I only had, you know, 1 or 2 trips a week. So with the bait shop, I'd end up closing at 5 or 6 to try to get a 4-hour trip in the evening, or hiring someone to come in there. And it didn't really work because no one really taught me how to be a fishing guide. You know, I'm trying to be a fishing guide, charging $100 to go out there on a 4-hour trip, paying a guy $100 to cover for me, you know. And once I finally figured out, something's got to give here, I was thankful that dude defaulted and everything went to hell, because it forced me into doing it forced me to drill down, figure out the guide thing, because that's the only thing I had going for me, you know? And I did. Thank God I did.
That's awesome. So you get into the guide world, and how, right off the bat, what was the first couple kind of, you know, areas of like issues you had? Do you have any like hard points, run up against things? Was it getting customers? Was it finding fish? Kind of, how was the first kind of struggles you had?
No, so there wasn't too many struggles. It was just like a learning. There was just a lot of learning, you know. And I'm like anyone else. I learned by making mistakes. And so I moved up to Mille Lacs through everything. Moved up to Mille Lacs, my early 20s, and started working under guides like Jack Dunn, I worked under Feligy for a little bit. I sub trips from McCoy's for like my first 2 or 3 years. I got in with a few resorts who were kicking me trips, and then my rate, I think it was $275 a day, and I priced myself, $25 under everyone else, and I thought that was awesome. And then if you remember, I just get going and guide trips and everything's like, I was up to $350 a day, I think. And then gas went to like $550. And I'm going, I remember talking to Tony, and I'm like, dude, it's like $220 to fill the truck and the boat. And we're all charging $350. He's like, yeah, I know. Like, I jacked my rates to $450. I think a lot of the other guides did too. And then from there, it just kind of, when gas prices settled down, the old saying, prices never go down. Well, we didn't drop our rates either. And that's kind of where everyone stayed. So it ended up working out pretty good. But the problems I ran into was truthfully not with any personnel or anything I did. It was just learning to adjust to Mille Lacs, man. I mean, I was beating my head against the wall for when I moved to Mille Lacs, we were all fishing for, I would say, all the way up until July. We were all fishing shallow to mid-range rocks with corks. And you didn't have to really do anything else. Or you could go up north to the mud and rig, but you really didn't have to do anything else to catch your fish. And then we got spiny water fleas. Then we got zebra mussels. And we got these invasives that changed the whole dynamic of the lake. And that was the hardest for a lot of people. Like some of the guides that I was working under, they called it quits because they didn't have their shallow rock bites anymore. They thought the lake was fished out. They weren't willing to adapt to the lake. Where me and the younger guides got out there, side imaging just came into play too. So it was horrible side imaging at the time, but we could see fish and we could see structure. So I'm out there doing all this stuff, collecting all this data, waypointing all these giant boulders and all these reefs that now we can see with our own two eyes, right? Not just a crappy contour map. And seriously, I mean, like you look at a map now and you're like, this is trash, dude. Like you look at a contour map and then you look at side imaging, you're like, what the hell? It doesn't look anything like it. But that's what we started doing, and that's what changed it. And through that, honestly, like side imaging, like that saved my bacon because I went out there, put the time in when I didn't have guide trips. I was still on the lake, scanning that whole lake, looking for my next spot, looking for the fish. And what I found was when I started guiding, the water clarity was like 7 to 9 feet. And that's why those guys we never had to pull off those, anything less than 20-foot rocks. You just basically worked there all year. And, back then, a lot of guys would start their guide trips at, 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon and get that sundown bite. I never did. I don't like working at night, but that was the hardship was finding where the fish went as the lake changed and realizing that a lot of the guys that I was working under, that they weren't as good as I thought. Like that was the tough part is going, these guys that you're working under and you're thinking that they know everything. And you're like, dude, this ain't the deal. Rigging ain't the deal anymore. The lake cleared up. You drop your sinker down and you're rigging and it fills up with green slime, like green slime's everywhere. And these guys are just fishing through it, getting 10 fish a day thinking like that's the way the lake is because they've rigged for 40 years and they're not willing to give it up. And we found, you just had to stay the hell away from the fish. You couldn't sit like you used to be able to sit on top of them and catch them. You can't do that anymore. That's what honestly, if a lot of those guys would have just stayed away, like back up 20 feet, they probably would have caught double the amount of fish. But now the last decade or so, the lake is settled in. It's settled into a sweet spot. I mean, I'm not going to say I don't have any concerns with it currently. Like the 2 fish limit they have right now, that's pretty much wide open, has me a little concerned, but I do trust that the DNR has a good grasp on it. Like, you have to, right? So
Yep. They better.
I'm hoping that they're biologists. I mean, right now on Mille Lacs, you can have 2 fish between 17 and 20 and 1 over. Like, that's crazy. You can have a 19 3/4 inch fish and a 28-inch fish for your limit. And for me, I'm like, hey man, I know it's nuts. And some of my customers were like, we can't, just 2 days ago, guy whacks 2 26s. He's like, oh, these are gonna eat great. I'm like, the hell they are. You're not, they ain't going to my live well, dude. Like, I know you're paying for this trip, but they're going back, dude. And then, then I'm like, hey, I got to teach this guy about, like,
yep,
this ain't the deal. Sorry. I'm watching my tip go right out the freaking window, but what do you do? So
that's crazy, because
I don't know. Mille Lacs has been.
It's crazy. You talk about how you had the zebra mussels and stuff come in, and where I was sitting, a stone's throw from Winnebago, we're literally just going into a zebra mussel change over the last like 3-4 years, where the water's starting to really clear up. It's funny you said about shallow rock bites. Those are kind of becoming problems for us, because you can see all the way to the bottom now where you never could see before. Weeds are coming in places where we have never seen them before, and the lake is kind of not quite 100% like you talked about, how things are really changing, but everything's kind of getting weird. It's just kind of, it's a different fishery. Colors are changing, how you fish things. Back in the day when I first started, we could troll, shallow water troll. We can't shallow water troll unless you send your stuff out 1.5 miles and stay, keep the boat off the rocks, right? So it's kind of interesting that you say that you guys had to go through that change, and it kind of settled into where it needed to be.
Yeah, man, it's a difficult change. Like, the one piece of advice going through that, and I'm not kidding you, man. All the guys I worked under, like, they pretended that they were guiding, but they didn't. Like, I'm out there every day. I'm like, you guys aren't out there. Like, when you're out there every day, you know who's out there every day. And Mille Lacs is one of those lakes where if it blows from the south at 30 miles an hour, you're going to be somewhere from basically Big Point to Indian Point over on the other side. And if the bite's crappy, you'll see who's there and who's not, man. And it like, I guess the point of that is those guys were like, yep, they were all at retirement age. They're like, we're dipping. And they dipped out and kind of left. I think it was me, Tony, Ajax, who else? Matt. Like, that was pretty much it, man. There was like 4 or 5 of us. So it is what it is. I would say on Bago, man, if you're going through that, your side imaging, your fish are going to change, man. They're going to become nomadic. They're going to roam around more. We saw our walleye population basically diminish, because when they come into a system, they're so aggressive, right? So that's invasive. So their population goes through the roof, absolutely through the roof. You get gin clear water. Your fish are spooky as hell. And, then you get to this leveling off period. And for us, it happened like 11 years after, I think. I could be wrong about that. It felt like 11 or 10 years. But all of a sudden, the zebra mussels were way up here. And they ate themselves out of house and home. And then they came down to a sustainable level. Oh. And that's what I mean before when I said, like, the lake kind of leveled off a little bit. And now we're in a consistent pattern for the last couple of years. So that same thing's going to happen to you guys out there. You're just going to have to, like, I don't know, look at kind of what we did. And I don't know. I feel bad that it happened, but I think it's going to happen to every lake.
Yeah, it's funny because even along with that, as I've watched you guys, the rise of smallmouth and Mille Lacs, right? The same things happen in Winnebago. The smallmouth is coming through the roof. The bass guys freaking love it now. There's a bass tournament pretty much every week on the lake. So all that stuff's happening. It's literally a mirror image of what happened over there, and we're just a little behind. The only good thing I can think of is a few years ago we took our because we're open year round for the system's open to keep year round. And we went from 5 down to 3 fish, which I think helped a lot because, coming out of COVID, everybody gets all these new people started fishing stuff. We went down to 3, that helped. But yeah, the lake has exploded into bass world and the water's clear. You pull up, you can see, structure now. And like you said, everything's spooky. I pull up, throw the live scope out. If I gotta, you slowly sneak your way up to see what's going on. Otherwise, you just see them all just once you get up on top of there. And it's a kind of a whole different game. I think the live scope, maybe it's going to help us a little bit faster than maybe you guys did because we can kind of see what's going on, and not spooking those fish out. Where back in the day, you guys didn't have to know what was happening to you for a while there. And we don't have the milfoil. So that's kind of been a positive.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, so the weeds for us were what changed for us, which was a big one. The whole bottom, because it got so clear, not on the mud, it didn't happen, but it happened a lot on the rocks. So the rocks got way more algae on the rocks, and the sand out in the depths you were fishing were covered in algae on the bottom. Oh. So and it was just algae. It's just really fine, slimy stuff. So it would get in your swivel, and what would happen is you're dragging it through there, and that's the way guys used to do it. They drag it. Well, then I figured out, I didn't figure it out, but hold it up, like get to the bottom and hold it up. Mm-hmm. And you would get a few more fish, but then it's like, that still wasn't the deal. What we found with side imaging then is, you remember when power corking became a thing?
Yep.
That started with us out here driving over fish, marking them on 2D and down imaging, and then just flicking our bobbers and our prop wash and shutting and like turning the wheel at a 90. So you're not, and that's how we were getting them, dude.
Wow. Hey listeners, let's talk outdoor streaming. What is the best outdoor streaming platform out there? Well, it's simple. It's Fix TV. Not only do they have this great program, but they have all kinds of hunting and fishing shows along with some weaponry shows. So when you get bored and need something to do, get your fix with Fix TV. And when you're done with that and you have that fix to get out in the outdoors, jump on therealshot.com and get everything you need to satisfy your fix.
No kidding. We did that for probably 6-7 years. Like, it's crazy. And then the forward-facing sonar started coming out like 8 years ago now, maybe. And honestly, I think that slowed down because everyone had it out here. Like, everyone had it. And I believe that slowed down the progression of the lake healing because we just became way better predators.
Oh, you guys were on them faster.
Yeah, we were on them faster. Yeah.
Wow. So what's been a difference when you first started guiding to what it is now? What's the biggest difference? Is it electronics?
Yeah, I'd say it's electronics. And the way we fish. I used to be a tiller guy up until about 8 years ago, and even last year I run 2 boats. I got a 2075 Impact, and then I had an 1875 Pro Guide, and I'd swap between the two depending on what I was doing up there. And I got rid of that tiller last year because, dude, the trolling motors now, absolutely. I'm not going to say they made tillers irrelevant. Like, I know the owner of Warrior Boats, and he's going to slap me, right? He's going to be like, Brad, shut up, But honestly, sorry. But the tiller boats almost became irrelevant due to trolling motors.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all brushless now.
Yep.
The fish can't hear it. You can spot lock. You have drift mode now, which is absolutely deadly. For
Mm-hmm.
so you're on drift mode, right? And you're still using forward facing, just pegging these targets out. It's like,
Right.
why the hell would you want to be in the back of the boat?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's
right. And
that's the thing. You see a lot of the tiller guys that are still hanging. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you have the batteries with that. I mean, even seeing, it's nothing for guys around here. Even though we still do a lot of trolling because obviously we can do the 3 rods, but a lot of guys still dump off the kickers. And they don't need them no more. I mean, if you think about, I was talking the other day, is you think about the motor you use the most in the boat is one on the front of the boat, right? Big motor doesn't run a lot, right? You run your spot, and most of the day you're on that trolling motor. The Quest is running, the Kraken's running, whatever you're running, that's what's running most of the time. That's to me, that's, probably your most important part of the boat.
So here's some funny things. Like, if there's some hate going on in the industry right now, all the outboard companies hate the trolling motor companies right now because they're not selling any more kickers on any walleye boats. Like, you don't really see it anymore. These motors, like, I was just out on Erie, I don't know, a month ago or whatever, and even with the old, the first gens, the first gen Ultrex,
Yep.
We're out there towing 9 planer boards all day long in 4 to 6 foot rollers and coming back. And that was when I was running like lead acid batteries and having 20% battery life. Now we got brushless lithium. Came out there. We trolled around for 7.5 hours on the digital counter. I had 75% battery left.
Wow. Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And then you add the on the fly charge that goes with that. So you're run back up to re-troll. You're topping it back off over and over all day. It really makes life a lot easier. And yeah, and really none of those big motor companies sell a current top end trolling motor that I'm aware of. They're all, they don't.
No, their only move is to try to buy Garmin or Humminbird. That ain't gonna happen.
Right? No kidding. Yeah, it's funny because I still have a kicker, and there's quite a few of us have a kicker. I haven't got rid of it yet. I do start it every now and then. I started for the first time last weekend just to make sure it ran. I think I'm more keeping on in case something bad happens, but I don't really use it. I've been debating on getting rid of it for a power pole instead. I'm like, I can put a power pole there. That'd work. I mean, I don't. But yeah, it's one of those things that's kind of becoming a novelty.
It is. And here's a good point to make. Like, so me and my buddy Miles were out on Erie, and this school of fish was super long. It was like almost. It was like just under 7 miles. The school was. It was really narrow. It was just following the water line, clear and dark water, and we trolled one way 6.5 miles, turned around and went the other way 6.5 miles, and then came back. So 18 miles, and your battery's still at 72% or whatever. It's crazy. And that's what really made me realize the kicker motor, unless you're using it for a backup or whatever, or like you're just trolling on a river or doing whatever, man, it's hard it would be hard for me to justify buying a kicker. Like you say, you're starting it every once in a while just to get gas going through it,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think the last time I actually used it, I think, was pulling flies in a river in the spring, right? It was the current was a little strong, and I don't want to burn the battery down, so I fired up just because we were, in a spot that had heavy current. But other than that, I mean, I don't want to say there's no use for it, but golly, it's kind of like, when you had that first boat a long time ago and you finally decided to get rid of the oars and you're like, okay, I'm good. I can go without extra, worry about getting back to shore. these big boats, man, they get out there and, big 20-foot boat, that's tough to get back if you don't got extra motor for it. But at the same token with the tow motors, you should be able to get back. Even, you got to nurse your way in, take a different way off the lake or something. And everybody helps. Everybody seems to help everybody. That's one good thing about fishermen. They always seem to want to help and tow somebody in if it need be.
Yeah.
So have you ever had...
That's the one thing in my career, man, that...
Go ahead.
It broke up there. All I heard was, have you ever had?
Oh, no. So go ahead. What were you saying?
So just in my career, man, there was a lot of negativity, right? Like all these old guides, they're big drinkers and they would get real negative, and that was one of the things I just couldn't live in that environment. Like these guys get negative about the fish, they get negative about the limits, they get negative about all this stuff. And I'm like, guys, what are you working towards here? Like you gonna go be a doctor or a lawyer at 50 years old? Like we got to figure this out, and being negative about it ain't helping. And I think that's helped my career a lot is, the dudes that were negative, I just leave them in the dust, just can't have that crap around me, especially, being a guide, you love what you do. You love your clients, you love making and creating these awesome experiences for people. There's absolutely zero room for being negative, and I'd say like for anyone that's looking to get into this, like check that at the door, but anyways.
Right. I suppose you got to find a positive in everything because, you're as a guide, your mentality of the day is basically how people fish, right? I mean, it's no different than like you have your safety rod or your lure you like, or that's your confidence, right? And you are the confidence for those guys every time you take them out. If you have shit confidence, you're probably they're gonna have a rough day. They're probably not gonna catch as much, and it's gonna be probably a miserable experience for everyone. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep.
So have you ever had any terrible days out, like terrible days where you didn't catch fish or someone got hurt, broken rods?
Oh, okay. So you want some bad stuff? I'm trying to figure out which guide story I'm going to tell, man. I got a lot of them. It's got so many of them. Like broken rods, whatever. You know what I mean? Like that happens. I had a lady. Okay, here's a good one. So I had a lady, really good customers of mine. They're still great customers of mine. And we were rigging at the time. And I had I think it was like a $400, $450 custom rod with, at the time, the Shimano Stratic CI4s just came out and they were $250. So there's like $750, $800 in this rod. And I'm going through her. Basically, this dude, great customer of mine, brought his wife and he's like, hey, I want you to take care of her. I know what I'm doing. Just make sure she has a good time. I'm like, okay, cool. That's awesome. So he's catching fish. I'm dialing her in. And I'm like, hey, so when you feel tension or you feel bite, let go of the line for like 3 seconds. And then close the bail and reel it in. I said, so the first fish, the first time you feel it, just tell me, hey, I got a fish. So I watch her rod. So she's holding the line, like you do when you're rigging, holding it. And I see her finger go forward a little bit. Now the end of the rod goes bonk. And I'm like, she just throws the damn thing with a fish on it, with an open bail. And I'm just like, oh, I tried to grab it with the net. It's gone, right? It's like, see ya. We're in 33 feet of water. And he just looks at me and he goes, that was one of the new Stratics, wasn't it? And I said, yeah, it was. It was like, but I'm not too worried about the reel. It's the rod, because at that point in my career, I had 4 of those rods. I'd purchased 4 of those expensive custom rigging rods, and they were the deal. They're, back then that was the deal. And that day was that was the biggest payday I ever got from a guide trip. And she never came back in the boat, man. He's like, "You're done, honey. Like you're out." I tried, man. I always carry a big spoon in case that happens. We're dragging the bottom, trying to find it. It was gone. But that's one story. But yeah.
Wow. So how did you stay positive after that?
Right. I just laughed. What are you gonna do? I mean, literally, what are you gonna do? Like, I just said, I was like, hey, don't throw any more over because we only got like 20 rods in this boat. So if you keep throwing them over, this is gonna be a really expensive day for you. Like, and everyone laughs. Like, you have that moment of like that really happened. You seriously just threw the damn rod over. And then you're like, okay, well, I know he's paying for it, so I guess I don't care, so whatever. There's another one. This one's kind of gross. Like, so your fans.
Yep.
Shut it off right now if your gag reflex, if you got a weak gag reflex, because this one are so so this is in the tiller days, like 10 years ago. Awesome trip. We're out there bass fishing. They're shallow. Back in the day on Mille Lacs, all we threw was basically we threw tubes, jerk baits, and spinner baits, like full on spinner baits for them. And we're out there by Hennepin Island. And if anyone knows Hennepin Island, it's full of birds. And the island is white. Everyone thinks, oh, it's a beautiful white island. Well, the reason why it's white is because it's full of bird poop. Like, after a rainstorm, it goes from white to black because it's all granite rock, right? And everyone thinks it's like limestone or something. It's not. It's all poop. And after a rain, all that washes into the lake. Well, anyways, exactly above or in front of me, and she's enjoying the day. It's a beautiful day. There's no wind. It's like 85 degrees. Like, you're beautiful, and you're on the lake. Like, Mille Lacs is just slicked off glass. I'm loving it because I can run anywhere on the lake when it's like that. And the tiller boats, I had a 200 at the time, so it would go like this and then plane out. Well, she's like, "Oh, this is such a beautiful day," and right there, one of them big storks or whatever, it took a dump, man, and it hit her from here. Her mouth was open all the way across her face, and I'm like, "Oh, yuck!" She had it in her mouth was. I'm gonna gag just thinking of this. Like, it was just super nasty. I just like. So she's looking at me. I'm like, "Get away!" Like, I was like, lean over the side and I'm splashing her with water. She's like, "Oh, it's lake water. It's icky." So I go in the cooler and I grab a pop and I'm like dumping that, trying to. She's like, "Oh, is that that's real Coke?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's real Coke." She's like, "Oh my God, I only drink diet." And I'm like, "Oh, lady, seriously, okay? Like, holy, I'm trying to help you out here." She is like, "John." We get her mouth cleaned out, and dude, she's like spitting, and I'm looking at that, and there's like scales in her spit because that bird, that's all it's eating is fish, right? So she had like in that poo was like scales and fish bones. It was so nasty. Anyways, she's like, "I'm done. I am done." Like, okay, I'd be done too. Her husband and his friend were like, "Well, you can run her in and she'll get cleaned up and go do whatever. She'll go shopping or something and we'll go back out." I'm like, "Okay, sweet." So we bring her in, drop her off. She's cool, a little bit settled down. We go out there, just whack on the smallmouth, kind of laugh a little bit. I told him, I'm like, "Dude, I'm going to repeat this story like 500 times, so don't be mad at me." We get back to the dock. She's standing there. She went to the hospital and wanted to get checked for bird flu because that was like the big thing, like during that time period with bird flu. And I'm just looking at her like, I don't know if you can get that by them pooping in your mouth. She's like, that's what they said. And I'm like, oh, sorry. Like, whatever. I'm a fish guide. I don't know. Like, whatever.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah.
So how has social media affected or changed your guiding? Because you basically have, as a guy, you've gone through everything. You went through technology as it gets to where it is now, and also social media at a high level. And as somebody that put stuff out there as well, and I see you're on a ton of videos for other companies and stuff, and do a great job doing that. How does that affect your daily guiding and just fishing in general, you think?
So, when I started, it was fishing forums for like 3 or 4 years. So I would start I put my fishing reports on the fishing forums, and then it was a big thing back then. And your signature line was like Hawthornes guide service and my website and my number. And seminars were a big thing back then too, where I would do, a seminar at the Northwest Sports Show. That was a really big deal for me, man, to do my first one down there. And then like doing the seminars at Thorne Brothers was like a super big deal because, Thorne Brothers was like, that was the bait shop. That's you get in with those guys, and they know how to fish. They're great fishermen down there. So it was like really cool to be in that clique, and then that all kind of changed. Like when I started, it's like 3 or 4 years of forums, and then Facebook came out, and it was crazy. Like I remember it had Facebook for like 3 days, and I cut and paste my fishing report with the pictures from Fishing Minnesota and Lake State Fishing at the time and put it on Facebook. And I got 9 guide trips from Wisconsin, Illinois. I got one from Tennessee. And I'm going, what? Yeah, it was crazy. So the social media opened my client base up. Like I'm struggling to get clients in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and all of a sudden Facebook comes around and I'm working double shifts. And then social media went from back in the day, it was just photos. You could upload a photo, and that did really well. So that's how I would do it. Fishing reports. Then it was video. And I remember Billy Linder, early in my career, video was getting big, even in the forum days. And he looked at me and he's like, Brad, if you're going to make it, you got to be good on video. And I was terrible, man. I was horrible on video. They'd turn that camera on, I'd freeze. I would fumble through words and, get red in the face and all this other stuff. And Billy's like, hey, man, I like you. And I think you could be good. But you got to get as good as you are with rod and reel, dude. You got to get that good on camera or you're going to get washed out. And I'm like, what? Like, it scared the crap out of me. And Billy Linder's like a behind the scenes guy. I got a lot of respect for him. And he was dead serious. I'm like, well, how, Billy? Do it in the mirror, Brad. So he said, he's like, pretend you're doing a TV show in the mirror when you're drying off in the morning. And I'm like, really? Like, that's it? That's the advice I get from the Hall of Famer Billy Linder. That's what you're like. That's it. So that was it, man. That was, from then until now, practice in front of the mirror before I went on my guide trips in the morning, and slowly but surely became good on video. And the companies, I guess, recognize that, and my customer base recognized that. When you can identify with someone on a video and they see you face to face and they're like, you know what, I do want to fish with that guy. And it kind of brings them in. And I've always prided myself on the video stuff. Like, if I don't catch fish on the stuff, I'm not going to promote it. I'm just not going to do it. And I've always tried to be real with that, you know, because I didn't come from money, dude. And I still, like, I'm a fishing guy. People are like, oh, you got it made. I'm like, oh, you think I'm rich? No. Like, am I doing what I love? Am I a happy person? Absolutely. But with the promotion end, that's why I'm not ever going to promote trash, dude, because everyone works so hard for their money, especially nowadays. I mean,
Right.
dude, a bobber, it's $4, dude. You know, like, everything's expensive, and you can't be pushing trash on people, man, because now instead of writing a nasty comment, they just won't watch your video.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I do have to say though, one of the things I liked about the videos you've been a part of, and all the ones I watched, I did a deep dive on here the last couple of days here and watched a bunch of stuff that I just scrolled back to look at stuff that you had. Is like the two things that obviously you come across as one of us, right? I'm just a normal dude, and the techniques that you're sharing are awesome techniques that like even around here, we don't use a lot of that stuff anymore. And just going through your videos, I'm like, oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. I can do that. You know, yeah, I fish more than the average person, but I think that how you come across and how your videos and what you're talking about is basic stuff that puts a lot of fish in the boat. I think people kind of see that and go, okay, yeah, that dude's something I can relate to. I can do that stuff, right? And it sound great. Sound like you've been doing it forever.
Dude, I like, you're gonna make me cry, dude. I appreciate the shit out of that. Like, I always wonder, you know, because you do a video and you get a little self-conscious, like, are people gonna really learn from that? Or did I do a deep enough dive on that so people aren't struggling? Like, every time I do one of those long videos, I get in my head because there's so many things you could have done better, you know. I'm like, oh, I didn't tell him to take chapstick and rub it on the slip bob or not. You know, I didn't, you know, all these little things I go into. And but thank you for that, dude. You know,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think one of the first videos I caught of yours was, before I even talked to you about coming on, was troll jigging, jig trolling. Is it jig trolling? Trolling
Yes.
jigs. Yeah.
Yes.
That I'm like, genius.
Yep.
Genius. You know, and just it wasn't, you didn't have to go to, I think some people get too far in depth sometimes. And some people obviously don't go in depth all the way, but it was just enough to go, oh yeah, I get it. It makes sense, right? And as somebody that's never done that before, I mean, I have fish more than people, but it still was made immediate sense to me, and the footage was good and everything, and it was just a good video. And I'm like, that's something I've done since then because I watched your video, right? And there's so many of those people out there that do that though, and there's so many great people out there. I think is kind of why fishing is kind of going the way it's gone, with so many people involved. Is there's so many great videos out there too for people to watch, and that's one thing I wanted to ask about too.
Yeah.
As a guide, like in the past when I was a kid 10 years ago, right? The guides and the pro fishermen were always the people that were teaching everything. Is there anything weird that now that like there's a whole world of like online fishing dudes that are out there that are teaching people too as well? Does that kind of, do you feel like that's not encroaching on you, but is that kind of a weird feeling that's not just you guys are at the top of the heap of teaching people how to do stuff? Now you have content creators and all these other people out there that are kind of getting in your space a little bit, or no?
No, dude. I mean, because like, you know, in the end, and this, I hope this doesn't come across like wrong. Maybe I did, probably not going to articulate this quite right, but you know, I'm out there really doing it, like almost every day. Every day I'm out there, and every day I got to produce for my clients. I'm not standing in front of a ring light trying to use keywords for an algorithm, you know, like I'm actually doing it. And like a lot of those guys, they're great. They're good teachers, but in the end, they're leaving out those details that take 20 years to get. And there's a lot of good, shoot, man, there's a lot of good content creators out there right now. I mean, You take like Sobe's great, Nick Linder. Nick Linder is just killing it right now with his content. And to answer your question, most of those guys are my friends, man. Like that's the truth. Like just talk to Nick. Me and Nick were just out there. What was it like? That was 3 days ago. Yeah, me and him were just out there like laughing. We had to do this shoot. I had to do a guide trip or whatever, and then we all got together and we're just chucking bobbers, having fun. And I don't think they're encroaching on anything because that's where it is, man. There's I don't look at it as encroaching. There's a need for that. Like you take some of those videos, like some of those guys are really like, how do you say that? They're like the shock and awe. You know what I mean? Like they do they're real, they're like that a lot.
Oh yeah.
And that's some people like that. Yeah. Some people don't. I don't know. But no, I think this whole area we're in right now of social media, there's room for everyone. And the cool part, just like TV, now you can just be like, hey, I don't like that dude, click. I want to watch something else.
That is true. There's definitely enough people out there for everybody to kind of hone in on what you want to watch and how you want to fish too, which I kind of really like that you can do different things, and there's shore guys and people are doing more shore fishing and all that kind of fun stuff. That you can kind of hone in what you're actually doing, which is cool. So you also
I watch all that stuff.
Right? Yep. So you're a full ice guy too as well, right?
Yeah.
So what's that like in the great frozen state? Would you rather?
Well, it's not like guiding in Florida,
Would you rather be on the ice or on the water?
Seriously, so on the water, right? Like, because you don't have to drill holes to get them, right? It's super easy. But I will say, man, I get fired up for ice. Like, it starts getting cold, and I'm like, oh yeah, can we get out there? Like, is it gonna happen? And I forget about summer fishing, because we have just a mecca around us of
you do
giant perch, giant walleye, giant pike. But end of February, I'm like, yeah, we can be done with this. We can be over this right now. But I don't know. The fishing is what holds me in there. And then all it takes, if you get negative in the winter, all it takes is one good rod bend. That's all it takes. And you're right back in there loving it.
Yeah. That's true. That is very true. You do full guide all winter long then?
Yeah, dude. Well, no. So we start guiding when the ice is safe on Mille Lacs. So that's usually like between the 15th and 20th is when we start walking out and getting to those areas. And then I guide until like the first week in March because it's so labor intensive. Like I got two guys right now. We got Miles and Brecken. Shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome. Like right there. Those guys are like, some days we're throwing 8 otters on my trailer. You know what I mean? And cleaning fish after that, drilling 50 holes. That's the thing about ice guiding is you're doing it for the customer. You're setting up that otter on fish. And then if you have to move multiple times in the day, which you do, you're doing that all for them and then moving them to there and being like, hey, the heat's on in your shelter and come on and sit down. And to do that, we don't have just a shelter per person. If I have 4 shelters out, I have 2 extra shelters that are empty that I'm moving ahead of those guys to move them into them. So you can imagine how much you're moving around during the day to make this operation flow. You're not just sitting there, it's a lot of hard work.
That's a lot of
But yeah,
physical.
so May, I'd say from mid-December. Oh, it's super physical. And as I get older, man, I'm like, this is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but man, I tell you what, you put a kid, a father and son in the winter in an otter, and that kid cracks the walleye of his life. I'm good. I'm good. You know what I mean? Like that's just that's fuel, dude. I eat that up. I use that as fuel. I burn that all winter long. Like that's stuff I live for. But yeah, it's labor intensive, and I have I'd say about a 2.5 month winter season. But yeah, full time, and then we also run ice camp too. That's a fish house rental operation that we run too, man. And that's crazy. Like, yeah, we got a lot going on.
Right. So have you ever thought about tournament fishing? Have you ever done any tournaments? You ever thought about that, or is guiding kind of your thing? You ever had the itch to get in the boat and beat somebody up?
Mm-hmm. I used to tournament fish a lot, man. I wouldn't say a lot. I fished tournaments for I think 3 seasons, and I was decent, man. Like I would say that for the 3 years I tournament fished, I was in the top 10 50% of the time, and I like that. And then the reason I got out of it was real simple. Tournament fishing, when I started, everyone was kind of on an even playing field. Everyone had a 21-foot boat and like a 175 to a 250 horsepower motor, and that was it. We did have the beginnings of forward-facing sonar that we were utilizing, but it was like bad, like ultrasound. You know what I mean? You weren't doing what we're doing now with it. You could kind of, but it was pretty sus. Like you're like, is that a fish? No, like you weren't. So it played, and what happened is in the course of a couple years, all of a sudden guys are showing up with 22-foot boats and 400s and 350s and 20-inch screens on the back. And the company that they own is sponsoring their rig, and like, good for them. I ain't gonna bash on anyone. Like,
yeah,
if you're a successful business owner and you're gonna do that, good for you, dude. I just can't afford. I can't afford $130,000 boat. And the other part came from I wanted to win, so I would pre-fish for at least 4 days before the tournament. And then the tournament comes. So you got 2 days usually with the tournament, and then a day of drive time. So you're taking 6-7 days off. And that's 6-7 days that I'm taking off of guiding. And I remember the first tournament I won. And I was just like, called my parents, like it was an awesome feeling, holding that W. And I looked at it and I lost like $800 that week because there was lodging, fuel every day. Because when you're pre-fishing, you're running hard, dude. I mean, you're burning $150 a day. And I went through it. Remember I was talking about cash flow earlier?
Yeah.
Tournament fishing in my line of work didn't cash flow, but I really like to do it. I love the ups and downs. I love the highs and lows. Dude, I took second place, I think twice in the state championship. And I was just like, seriously, like those ups and downs, that drama fest you got going on in your head during that thing is like, it's addicting. But the reason I got out of it, dude, is quite simply the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. Like, and now I would love to get back into it, but I go, okay, so I'm gonna have to buy, a bigger Lund than I have now. I mean, right now I got a 21-foot boat, with a 225 on it and 2 talons, and it's rigged to the nines. I mean, I've got 3 screens up front, big one on the dash. I mean, it's pony, dude. It's going. And that's not a tourney rig, dude.
No, unfortunately not.
You need 23
foot
boat. Yeah, but it ain't the deal for tournament fishing.
Yeah.
So yeah, true. I mean, I credit those guys that can do it. So that's what changed is I stayed the same and my wages kind of stayed the same, and tournament fishing became like a write-off for people that have companies and could afford it. Good for them, dude. If any of those big companies want to sponsor me to tournament fish, I'm right here, bro. Right here.
Hey, listeners, let's talk outdoor streaming. What is the best outdoor streaming platform out there? Well, it's simple. It's Fix TV. Not only do they have this great program, but they have all kinds of hunting and fishing shows along with some weaponry shows. So when you get bored and need something to do, get your fix with Fix TV. And when you're done with that and you have that fix to get out in the outdoors, jump on therealshot.com and get everything you need to satisfy your fix. Yeah, the same over here, right? Yeah, no, it's, that's kind of where my world is over the last, 3-4 years. And I really enjoy doing it, really enjoy tournament fishing, had some success. Like you said, had a second place that I still to this day, 3 years ago, I relive every fish of that day that I decided to throw back teeth because it ended up being like 3 ounces off, right? And now it's kind of more like I really love it, and I still like doing it. And it just kind of, I don't really chase the big ones much anymore. I still do a lot of local stuff and the AIM stuff and things like that to kind of keep my juices going for me, right? And that side of it. But it's when you start traveling out of town and you start staying in hotels, and if you're going to do a bigger place, you want to be there a week, like you said, a week ahead of time. So that's getting Airbnb with somebody. It's eating. That's gas. The gas for pre-fish, like you said, twice the amount of gas I spend in pre-fish per day than I do on the day of the tournament, because you pretty much know where you're going to go, right? But you got to check all these spots out. That is crazy. I mean, it's kind of a good group of people, and that's kind of why I got into like the podcasting. I love talking fishing. I love being on the road and talking to those guys. At some point, just like, I could do this from home and still have a blast and still do some fishing here and there and kind of get my fix.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And I mean, you had to see that change too. It was like the manufacturers, truthfully, like they started building boats because they're going, hey, these guys are out there fishing in this stuff. Let's get equipment for them to do this. Like, we're the ones that push these manufacturers to make big motors, to change their hulls on the boats, to make them bigger. Like, and I'm thankful they did it. What I didn't think would happen was you go fish an NWT and you're there with a 225 and you're left in the dust. Like, if you don't have a rig that can do over 60 miles an hour, 64, 60, like, you'll get spanked. And people will say, what? I don't understand why. And I can fill in that blank. If you can run waves faster, harder than anyone else on there, you're going to get between 15 and 45 minutes extra time with your line in the water. And the guy with the smaller boat or whatever, he is not going to have that time. And because you fish tournaments, how many times did you get that ringer right at the bell where you're looking at it and your partner's like, hey, we got to go, or it's a single tournament and you're like, dude, I got to go. And bang, the rod goes, man. I got DQ'd from a tournament on Mille Lacs because I was like, bang, I got to go, and my rod bent. And I was like, ounces. I ran that boat roostered across the lake, and I get to the time boat, and she's like, I'm like, no. Like, it just sucks. But that's what I mean. But if I had a 400, I'd have 3 minutes to spare.
Yeah, you're definitely right. I do own one of those crazy fast 400s, and to like, you're dead right. I mean, there was some kids that we have the Mercury National Tournament here in Winnebago, comes out of Fond du Lac. So you have to run the whole lake up to Oshkosh. So it's 25 minutes of me going 60 miles an hour, right? And I get up to where I want to fish, and about 20 minutes, maybe 15 to 20 minutes later, this smaller Lund boat comes up. They had a 175 on. I had already caught a couple fish by the time they got there, and they rolled in, and they're great fishermen, right? And they had some issues, and I felt bad because they were having a great day. They were side by side. They were just as good as fishermen as I was. They just didn't have the equipment, didn't have that stuff to be able to get in there at the same time as me and hold in there early. Because at the same token, they had to bail out early, and I was able to sit there and pass them as I go through. And it's one of those things. It's kind of like at some point, I got to a point where I was following what you're talking about. Like, you need that bigger boat, you need to go faster. So I did all that and was doing all that, and I got to the point where I had everything, and I'm fishing, I'm doing well. I'm like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's enough. It's not going to ever stop, right? It's just going to keep going. It's keep going forward. Everybody has the Garmin 32. Now we have the 34. Now there's a secret one coming out that no one really knows where it's at. All that kind of stuff that just keeps happening. But yet sponsorship dollars are down to, here's a free 15% off, where if I just pay attention, I get that free 50% off whenever I want anyways. Right. And everything's kind of drying up on that side of it. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's more of a labor of love. And thank God I have a wife that lets me do it. And I have a boss that lets me, take as much time off as I want. But other than that, it's pretty much just, fun time.
Yep.
So is there anything else you want to bring up? Anything you got coming up? This episode's going to come out right around middle of June. What's going to be cracking on Mille Lacs in middle of June?
Middle of June.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, the leech and bobber bite's going to be straight fire. So we're going to be running around, shining them up front, and those fish out there, man. June is when the bug hatches on the lacs. We switch to leeches and bobber, and now it's power corking out the front of the boat. So that'll be just an awesome time. I love that.
Is that
you
your
get
favorite
bug
bite?
hatches out there in Bago for sure, and so it's like.
Is that your favorite bite? The corking?
Man, my favorite bite. No, my favorite bite is, shining them and being like, oh, that's a big one. You know what I mean? Like, if you're up front, and you're like, bink, and you throw at them, and you see your line jump, and you set the hook. Like, so it's jigging a minnow. Jigging a minnow by far is my favorite bite. And for the forward-facing sonar haters, get in a boat with me or you or anyone that knows how to do it,
right?
And you shine a big old mark ahead of you. Watch that jig fall right down and watch that mark come up and set that line jump, and you set the hook. You tell me you don't like that and you're not addicted to that, go home. I ain't get out of here. You know what I mean? Like,
right. For sure.
It's the funnest thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Awesome. So
Mille Lacs that'll be the bobber is pretty cool. Like, you throw a bobber out there, the same thing. I just like to. So June is that on Mille Lacs, and then I don't know. I'll pull the lid off of this right now because no one has heard it. And seeing as this will air in June, we have a Humminbird class out of Fisher's Resort. So anyone with Humminbird equipment, Meca Live 2, and they need to know how to run it, or we're going to have riggers there. We're going to have factory guys there. We're going to have sessions on Minn Kota. And this is all pros on the water. It's super cheap. We'll have it online and take a look at it. So if we have guys out there that don't know how to use their equipment or unsure what they're seeing on forward-facing sonar or on side imaging or mapping or just like boat mechanics, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of guys, I'm sure you've seen this, where you watch a guy in the front of the boat and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, he's all over with his feet. His boat mechanics are just horrible. And, you're like, get out of there. Put your foot on the trolling motor and kind of show them like how you do that. Everything's a mess up there. It's like, dude, You know,
Yeah,
that's kind of what we're doing, is showing people how.
yeah. That's one of the things that I think people, if you're buying this stuff, you gotta just dive into it, right? If you got that new trolling motor, it's got a foot pedal. If you're not trolling, throw the hand control down and put your foot in that damn thing and spend a day there. You're gonna probably get a headache and a little motion sickness the first day, but after that, you're gonna be so much happier and have a better experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest breakdown we're working with right now, is introducing your foot and shining in front of you. You know, the bass guy has been doing this forever, and that's why I think, you know, like myself, I started out as a bass angler, and so when we started getting forward facing sonar, I was like, sweet, you know. And then you take the guys that were career tiller guys, and now they got to be in the front of the boat, and they're like, you know, it's like they got size 19 boots on up there. You know, everything's fumbling around, you know.
Right.
But it's I don't know. It's just a cool era we're in, man. You got to admit it. I mean, we got forward facing sonar, we've got live maps, we've got all this stuff, and like you pointed out, it's not gonna stop. Like, it's just gonna keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how does everybody get a hold of you if they want to book a trip with you? How do we find you?
All right, so I'm pretty easy to find. Brad Hawthorne. My website is millelacsLakeGuide.com. Yeah, I got lucky on that 20 years ago. That was wide open. I bought that.com. And if you want to just text me too, so it's millelacsLakeGuide@gmail.com. The website is millelacsLakeGuide.com. Or you can hit me on my cell, fire me a text, 651-271-8600, and we'll get you out on the water, man.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on this week. I really enjoy watching when you're on video, and just watching your stuff online is awesome. And if you're looking to be on an episode of Walleye Chronicles, hit me up at my socials at Matt Snell on Facebook and Instagram, or on TikTok at Smile and Fish. Remember, there's 2 things you can do to somebody every day to make their life better. 1 is give them a smile, and 2, take them fishing.